Welcome to another episode of Chris McDaniel's America, here on the Midnight Ride Network, your home of the anti-establishment movement in this country. With me, as always, Jack Fairchild. Jack.
Hey, Chris, how are you doing? Probably a little still on wired after last night's World Series game.
Pretty fired up. It's one of those great series that, honestly, I'd have been fine whoever won Game 7. Both teams are exceptional in their own way. I think we'll probably see these teams again next year. But watching it unfold the way it did, going into extra innings, one of the best World Series games I've ever seen. And that says a lot because I have seen the greatest World Series game in history. That was in 2016 when the Cubs won in Game 7 in the 10th inning after a rain delay. If you didn't see that game, you have not seen the greatest baseball game in the history of Major League Baseball. But this was right there in so many ways. The drama, the excitement, the plays at the end, it could have gone either way. And when you see something like that, especially when people are performing at the highest levels, it's incredibly inspiring. So those teams have nothing to be ashamed of, neither team. I'm surprised, frankly, the Dodgers pulled it out. It's hard to bet against Toronto at home, but sure enough, the Dodgers have built an incredible team with an incredible group of people, and they deserved it. Today, I want to talk about so much. You probably saw the title. You're probably wondering, how on earth could immigration be the end of us? Immigration, of course, we've talked about in the past. There's illegal, then there's legal, and there's a question about how it's impacting our future, because we can see how it certainly is impacting our present. And at current trends, what does that mean for a country like ours? What does it mean for countries in Europe? And you say, well, that's not that big of a deal. America is a nation of immigrants, and that is technically so. But things have changed considerably since about 1965, and those changes that were enacted in 1965 have created a condition whereby our country seems to be importing people that really don't share many of our core values. And the question for politicians, for sociologists, for voters is, if it doesn't end over time, what are you left with? And you say, well, why would you be thinking about that on a day like today? Believe it or not, it was Elon Musk that caused me to think about this, because just a few days ago, there was another attack in Britain, and wouldn't you know it was a stabbing attack. Now, look, most stabbing attacks have something in common. Usually the people that are the attackers are from the Middle East. Have you noticed that? They love their knives in the Middle East. So here we have, in this small British town, a young boy was stabbed, another man was stabbed, and it was an Afghan immigrant. Now, Musk attacked him, or at least the attack, for being the result of illegal immigration. And he called on Britain to turn the tide when it comes to illegal immigration. They really should. If you've noticed how Britain and France and other European countries are being invaded by their own laws, and many times even against their own laws, and how that invasion has challenged and transformed those countries into something that's not familiar to the European culture. More on that later. Let's talk about what Musk said. He posted an X post, or a Twitter post, we call it around here before.
Yeah, a tweet.
The tweet, that's what he posted. He wrote something interesting, because if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, like I am and others, this rings true. He said when Tolkien wrote about the hobbits, he was referring to the gentlefolk of the English shires who don't realize the horrors that take place far away. They were able to live their lives in peace and tranquility, but only because they were protected by the hard men of Gondor. If you've seen the movie, you recognize that. Now, it doesn't discount the fact that the hobbits were the ultimate heroes in so many ways of the movie, but he makes a valid point here. They were able to live in peace for the most part because they did have some form of protection. And Musk was referencing the hard men of England. Now, what will you do to protect what's left of yours? Now, granted, he's saying that people in England may not be paying attention. They could be busy with their lives. They may not be focused on the dangers that right in front of them at this stage. But so something needs to give. And he's saying that illegal immigration is the problem. So it made me think about our own unique problems with illegal immigration. And I think you're happy. I think everybody's happy that Donald Trump is trying to do something with the border. It's really important. We've got to find a way to stem the tide of illegal aliens coming across the border. There are a dozen reasons for that, but we all agree that needs to be done. Where it gets interesting is when you talk about legal immigration, because nobody wants to talk about that and how it impacts the overall tranquility and cohesiveness of this country. Begs the question. You have a country that's supposed to be a melting pot. We pride ourselves on that. What happens if your legal status, immigrants, are coming from countries, for whatever reason, that don't share your values? Well, initially, you probably won't notice it. But as it continues and continues and continues, you sense a change in the fabric of communities. Illegal immigration is bad. Legal immigration can be bad as well. So let's talk about that just for a few minutes. I'm going to tell you why it's happening and what we can do to fix it. There was a time, I don't know if you remember this, Jack, but America didn't apologize for who it was.
No, I do remember.
I mean, it's been tough during our lifetimes because at some point, based on the colleges and universities and liberal professors, I guess we all became bad guys. And I guess the country was just a bad, nasty, horrible country. But there was a time America did not apologize for who it was. It didn't whisper its values. It yelled its values. It didn't try to confuse immigrants. It said, if you come here, you will assimilate. If you come here, you will learn English. If you come here, you will learn civics. If you come here, you will wave the flag. You will serve in the military. You will be an American citizen. We weren't ashamed of that. And that's the way it was for an awfully long time. Consider this, though. Many, even during that time, especially in the 60s when things began to get shaken up by liberals, many begin to see the concept of assimilation as oppressive. Mm-hmm. Now, you know what I mean when I say assimilation. That's a weird word. I recognize that. But it means if you're from Ireland or Poland or Germany or France, wherever the case may be, and you come to this country, be an American.
Yeah.
It's okay to have pride in the motherland, but that's not your country anymore.
No.
You can occasionally wave your Irish flag if you want to, but that's not who has your allegiance anymore.
And that's the way it used to be.
That's the way it was supposed to be. But when people confused assimilation with oppression and made that argument, things began to change. How did they change? I don't know. There was a point in time in our lives where we actually learned English in high school. There was a point in time we actually taught government and civics in high school. The American flag was waved in high school. We actually valued citizenship. It wasn't disfavored or dishonored. We were proud to be American citizens. And now you sense there's two Americas out there. If you don't sense it, you haven't been paying attention because there's been a great unraveling. And that unraveling began right about the civil rights movement of the 1960s. Now, hold on, liberals. Don't lose your minds yet because some very good things happened during the civil rights movement. For example, government should treat everybody, say it with me, equally. Government shouldn't allocate resources based on, say it with me, immutable traits like skin color. Government should be colorblind. Those were good things that happened in the 1960s. But you take the element of success they were having there, extrapolate that into theoretical immigration policy, and make the argument that we have to be more in line with our immigrant policy as we are with our domestic policy. And all of a sudden then, to insist on assimilation became, by definition, racist. To insist on assimilation meant you were doing something you were culturally insensitive. It's like liberals get caught up in a classroom and they have these great idealistic concepts, none of which actually work in the real world. And that's what they're doing here. We have a country we have to somehow maintain unity with. And the liberals say, forget about that. Bring people from everywhere, whenever, however, we'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
Now, I get it. You're avant-garde, you're nuanced, you're very clever and intelligent, you're world travelers. And you think a simple conversation with these people will make everything okay.
They do.
Look, I like to travel too. I love foreign populations. I love people from other countries. I like people. But I also recognize that some countries have different values than ours. It's just the way it is. They have different concepts of the way they want to be governed than ours. So why would we insist on a policy that imports people from those countries, as opposed to a policy that imports people from Western Europe and Northern Europe? Please answer the question. Jack, give it a shot.
I think it's just basically because there is a segment in this country, mainly those who lean to the left, who despise what this country is. They want to try to paint it in these strokes that we are somehow this bigoted, hateful country. And I think that is why they say you're wrong to make them assimilate.
Well, that's just it, though. The idea, first of all, is how do you hold together a society? And generally speaking, that's a really difficult thing to do. The world, the history of the world is filled with division and violence against each other because of tribalism, because of differences in religion, language, customs, culture, wealth, whatever the case may be. So the liberals will concede those points and then make the argument, doesn't matter. Do it anyway. It's as though they're so idealistic, they're blind to the reality of humanity. Now get this. Right now, instead of the old America, what do we have? We have an America that claims that we're all tyrannical. When I say all of us, I mean, I guess the country as a whole, originally configured, is a problem. We have identity politics as a part of that. We no longer talk about what unites us. We always talk about what divides us. There are ramifications to that. Now, how did it all begin? That's the real question, because nobody wants to talk about this because it's so ethically, I guess. Well, no, I wouldn't say that. It's sensitive because the liberals make it so. Here's what happened. Up until 1965, we had an immigration policy that was very different than what we see today. The immigration policy was a policy that was adopted back in 1921, I'm sorry. It was called the National Origins Quota System. You say, what is that? Well, in 1924 and for years afterwards, there was a certain way we allowed immigration to exist. And what was that? We gave preferential treatment to Western Europe and to Northern Europe. And you can hear the yells now. That's racist. That's backwards. That's evil. But that's the way it was. And then the 1960s came around. I talked earlier about the civil rights struggle and how that extrapolated now itself into the immigration struggle. And then we have an act that's passed that changed the entire dynamic of how we immigrate into this system. It shouldn't shock you that the primary person behind this act was Senator Edward Kennedy.
Of course.
His name alone should trigger a series of question marks and problem philosophies, especially legislation that he's passed. I can't think of anything he's ever done that didn't benefit himself at the expense of the American people.
Yep. This
was one of those moments. So they have a debate on this act that's about to be passed in 1965. This act was called the Hart-Celler Act. The Hart-Celler Act. Immigration Reform, 1965. Kennedy stands on the floor. He says, look, I'm paraphrasing, but he says, look, this is changing nothing. He said, granted, we're going to have a few changes, but ultimately you're still going to have disproportionate numbers of Europeans coming to this country as opposed to Asia, Africa, and South America. And all the senators said, yay, that sounds good. The other senators called our old system just antiquated and old and racist. You can hear the debate. It's the same way they debate today.
Yeah.
There wasn't a thought as to what might happen to the country. It was simply, this feels really good. I feel morally superior here. So let's pass this, make ourselves feel really better about ourselves, and to hell with the future. Well, it rocked along. And it begs the question, and I just so happen to have the data here. So you passed this act in 1965. You promised it's not really going to change anything in the world. Listen to these numbers. In the 1950s, the United States averaged about 250,000 legal immigrants per year. By the 1990s, more than 1 million.
And this is legal, not
this is legal.
Yeah.
This is straight up legal. So 250. It was usually 150 to 250. By 1990, up to 1 million legal. And you say, well, my goodness, where did they come from? I got the data. pre-1965, 70% of the immigrants that came to this country from Europe. By 2010, 80% from Asia, Latin America, Africa, and the Middle East.
Wow.
Do you see why we're so fragmented now?
Yeah.
We're not saying these people are bad people. We're saying they have different customs, ideas about how to be governed, and different value sets. If you import, let's just say, for example, radical Islam into this country, don't be surprised if radical Islam takes root where?
In America.
If you import people that don't value liberty, but value collectivism and socialism, think South America in some respects, and that becomes a dominant segment of a particular city, I don't know, think New York for a moment, we shouldn't be surprised when they adopt philosophies and governments that are foreign to what we've always valued. But get this, I know it's crazy. Put color aside for a moment and focus simply on customs and language and values. But if you bring people in from Western Europe, who for the most part share your banking system, your educational system, your religion, and your view of life, and you bring them into the country, which group more easily assimilates? You already know the answer.
Yeah.
And now you know why this was so dangerous. 1965 changed the entire way we allowed immigration to happen in this country. And since then, we've become more diverse, which they say some reason is a great thing, but not when it creates so much diversity that it fragments civilized society. Are we not there?
We are there.
Is it not getting worse?
It's definitely getting worse.
And the politicians that promised us this would never happen lied to you.
Shocker.
Now, shocker. This is why it works the way it does. As part of that 1965 act, it wasn't just about changing the location of immigrants, where they came from. You gave preference to keeping families together. Chain migration. So now, if you import someone from a society that shares nothing in common with us, because their family's over there, they still get preference. And so you still get more people from that society than you would otherwise. And we can't reform this. I know what you're thinking. Clearly, this is based in racism. Jack, you're probably thinking that right now.
You know, a couple of things you brought up. You know, first off, talking about how Ted Kennedy's legislation passed merely because it was an emotional feel-good thing. And that pretty much sums up what the Democrats and liberalism is. It's all based in emotion. They don't take the time to study and actually put logic and reason into their decision.
Well, let's do that. Let's do that right now then. Because I decided to myself, recognizing the attack would be that anyone who stands against this Immigration Act of 65, this reform, you're going to be branded a bad person. You're going to be branded a nationalist or a racist. So I said, okay, let me find 10 reasons that has nothing to do with race, that have nothing to do with any of that stuff, and explain why it is. 10 reasons why it is this act has hurt this country. 10 reasons why it is we should be thinking more about European migration as opposed to, I don't know, the rest of the world. How about this one? Legal and institutional compatibility. It's very similar legal systems, very similar policies, constitutional governments, contract enforcement, independent courts. We share all of those things with Western Europe and with Northern Europe, not so much with other countries. That has nothing to do with race, you see what I've done? Number 2, language proximity. English. I know, you world travelers, you do recognize that even in Western Europe, English is either the primary language or a second language all over the continent. Same in Northern Europe.
Yep.
So when people come to this country already speaking our language, do you think that makes it easier to assimilate or harder to assimilate?
Definitely easier.
Number 3, economic alignment. Western European countries are advanced, right? They're diversified, and they're market-based, just like whose? Ours. And so when they come, they're already accustomed to the setting, to the way things work. That creates easier assimilation. Number 4, educational parity. Universities in Western Europe operate very similarly to our universities. Research standards, accreditation methods, all of it. It's the same. I can keep going. 5, rule of law, expectations. Migrants from other systems. This is going to shock you. I'm not saying this because I'm trying to, kick over an anthill. Migrants from other systems outside of Western Europe and Northern Europe have higher corruption rates. Did you know that?
Did.
Number 6, security vetting. When you import from countries you share all these similarities with, can't you see why you would have an easier way to, make sure you're not importing dangerous people?
Yeah.
I can keep going.
Keep going.
These are all
I want to hear
non-racial,
more.
solid reasons. Number 7, cultural familiarity. History and art, literature, religion, political philosophy, famous people, famous quotes, famous concepts, famous cultures, same food. Does that make it easier to assimilate or more difficult to assimilate? What about reciprocal defense mechanisms? In other words, because we all share similar styles of common defense of each particular country we're from, that's probably an advantage over sharing it with countries that are inherently adversarial against the United States, is it not? Or is it not? I can keep going, but I'm getting tired. Here's the problem, and I'm going to sum it up right here with this last one. This is going to make you mad. It's going to make everybody mad, but it's the truth. Empirical studies show that migrants from culturally and linguistically proximate societies. Let me say that a different way so everybody understands. We speak the same language. We have a similar culture. Those people assimilate faster, have less crime, better education, longer-term success, less welfare cost, and higher tax contributions than the countries that do not. What are we talking about this anymore for? We are killing our country by bringing people into the country that don't share our values and then fooling ourselves claiming that diversity in that context is a positive thing for the long-term survival of a country like ours. And it is not.
It's being proven day in, day out it's not.
So here you are, Edward Kennedy, passing an act, I guess your long-last legacy to this country before you passed on, the Hart-Celler Act. Can't we repeal this thing? Can't we at least tweak this thing, recognizing inherently the problems it's causing? Now, this is where you ought to get mad because this makes me mad, okay? Do you know why we can't? Because in some respects, we've talked to you about this before, the parties in D.C. are two wings of the same bird. Mm-hmm. Got a Republican wing and a Democrat wing. It's the same bird.
Yeah, they're both trying to fly the same direction.
This act helps prove that, and here's why. The Democrats like the new voters they're importing.
Yeah.
Because that's who they are. The Republicans like the cheap labor. You're getting screwed by your own party again.
Yep.
They like the cheap labor, so they don't have to pay anybody. And so the parties stay together, and reform is never even implemented, even though they know where it leads.
Well, they pretend to fight about it, too. I mean, and that's all political theater.
Well,
that's all it is.
They hadn't thought about this. When was the last time you've even heard of this thing being discussed?
The first time I heard of it being discussed, I think you wrote something about it. I mean, just being honest with you.
I remember the Gang of Eight talked about this just a bit, but of course that was not a reasonable even attempt to reform immigration. No. Right? And we all knew that at the time. But here we are after all these years recognizing all this, the consequences of allowing this to happen continually, and nobody does anything about it. No. We see Europe breaking to pieces. Right? You know, in France, there are parts of these smaller communities in France that don't even follow French law anymore.
Wow.
Do you know in Germany, the police are scared to go to certain parts of their communities because they know they're not welcome?
Wow.
Hey, man.
It's coming here. I mean, you've already heard Democrats pushing defund the police and things like we're going to see things like this. I mean, Sharia law, something like that is extremely possible in certain parts of the country because we're seeing it. I mean, if you had told us, 5-10 years ago that New York was about to potentially elect a socialist to be their mayor, people would have told you were crazy. But now You believe that he's the front runner.
Well, the high immigration rates from countries that don't share our values.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Period. And then you add illegal immigration into that, and you get the chaos that's ensued over the last 50 years. What's crazy is that this was only 1965. What's that, 57 years ago or so. Anyway, my math's all wrong there, but it was about 60 years ago. And it's done so much unbelievable damage. And yet no one even talks about it because A, you're afraid of being called a racist, or B, you like that cheap labor, or C, you'd like to import voters you know are going to support your policies. Like I said before, 2 parties, 1 bird. 2 parties, 1 bird. How close are we to a break right now?
We got to be coming up on it.
You say 5? Gives me just enough time to talk about Barack Obama. Speaking of 2 feathers, he's campaigning right now. I don't know if you've seen.
I've seen.
Virginia has a big race for governor that's going on right now, and both parties are gearing up. It looks like the Democrats got a lead out there, but just to make sure, I guess, she holds the lead, they bring in their shining star, Barack Obama. And as part of the speech, which, don't get me wrong, Barack Obama's a great speaker. It's just if you actually listen to his words, you know he believes nothing about what he really says.
No.
He's the guy, I've told you this before, he's the guy that walks into a room, throws a hand grenade in the room, leaves, comes back after the explosion and says, that should have never happened. What are you talking about? That's a terrible thing to do. But he did it. That's who he is, who he's always been.
Yep.
Well, now he's trying to figure out who to blame, who not to blame for the government shutdown. And I thought that was cute. Because there have been 13 times the Democrats have had a chance to reopen this government. And all 13 times they voted not to.
Yep.
Yet he still stands up there at this speech, and he blames the Republicans for the government shutdown. It goes to show how dirty the whole situation is because the Democrats are playing games here. And the Republicans are too, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But let's not kid ourselves. They need 60 votes in the Senate to reopen the government. And I think 1 Democrat, maybe Fetterman. Is he the only one that's even voted our way over there yet? I think maybe 1, maybe 2 have. Long story short, it really is at their feet. They are the cause of the shutdown primarily. This is where it gets crazy, though. The polling? Americans think Donald Trump's caused the shutdown. Americans think that the Republicans have caused the shutdown. And so what we're seeing now is Barack Obama, being the politician that he is, he sees that polling, and he sees it as a political opportunity. That's what he's doing right here. So he stands up, great orator, says these things. It's not true. None of it's true, but he knows there's a captive, stupid audience out there.
Yeah.
And he takes advantage of that, and he always has.
Yeah.
Clever man, right?
Yeah.
He says it, it happens, and the government's still shut down.
Yeah.
Here's my prediction. You ready?
Go ahead.
No concessions from either side. No victories from either side. Right after the elections on Tuesday, within a week, back to normal.
You think it'll open back up? They'll just move forward like this whole fight never happened?
Each side, it's like this every time. Every time I've ever seen one, it was worth the fight. We stood up for ourselves. Then they concede, both sides concede. Then both sides claim victory in the concession. And then the country continues with spiraling out of control debt, which is where we're heading. So, I talked about this last show, and it fires me up. And I shouldn't be this upset. But debt's killing the country. And the Republicans are completely satisfied.
They are.
Rubber stamping the exact same spending that Biden signed.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know which is sicker, the fact that they're willing to do that or the Democrats don't think that's enough.
It's equally disgusting in of itself, but it definitely speaks to how hypocritical both parties are, actually, because, the Republicans, whenever they're running, they're always, we've got to reduce the deficit. We've got to get this deficit under control, but they never do it. They constantly are wanting to just, kick it down the road. The next group will figure that out. Next group will figure that out. And then, of course, when you look at the Democrats, again, they are fighting against a budget that they fought for. And now they're just trying to fight against it time and time again. It's crazy.
Well, the numbers are troubling as well. Not that it's going to change dynamics of elections, because I think people of this country are so entrenched now that these slight fluctuations in these polls, it doesn't really matter much anymore. But right now, according to ABC News, I'm sure that's reputable, ABC News says that the margin is 55% to 33%. That is 45% blaming Republicans, 33% blaming Democrats. And Yahoo, another very reputable source,
There's still a thing?
they're saying that 46% blame conservative Republicans for the shutdown. Only 38% blame progressive Democrats that much. Now, again, take that for what it's worth. These organizations are clearly biased. But at the same time, it goes to show what I believe is going to happen. They'll rock along, get past these elections, see how it plays on those particular races, and then both concede, both confess, both claim victory, and nothing will ever really change. Welcome to America. Welcome to America. Meanwhile, the borders are, anyway, we'll talk about that in a second. It's time for a break. We'll be right back.
To Pearl River Resort.
Welcome back to Chris McDaniel's America. If you missed the first 30 minutes, you missed a Donnybrook. If you get a chance, go back and check out why it is our immigration policy is failing this country and why it needs to be changed and why it hasn't been changed. Because if we don't change that soon, you're going to see irreparable harm, as sometimes the courts say. You can only go so far down that path and import people that don't share your values, import folks that don't care, and not have it cause a significant scar in the country's fabric. That's where we're heading. Mm-hmm. Now, before we left on the break, we were talking about the shutdown.
Yes.
And you had a couple of questions about that. So let's go to those.
Well, I mean, you already kind of talked about this, because Democrats aren't being blamed for the shutdown, despite the fact they're the group that continues to vote against reopening the government 13 times. To me, and just talking to average folks in my circle, most blame the Democrats. Some would say it's both fault, and that's where it gets interesting. I mean, is the media spin trying to constantly blame it on? Do you think it's actually working? Are you buying into these polls? I guess is my question.
Well, here's the thing. I think the short answer is yes and yes. I think they are attempting to spin this to hurt Republicans. They always have.
Yeah.
I think probably these polls are mostly accurate. I don't think it changes many elections. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. That's probably a big sampling of many blue states. Well, here's the idea. California is never going to vote for a Republican for president. I know that's shocking. Shocking. Massachusetts is never going to vote for a Republican for president.
No.
Guess what? Alabama is not going to vote for a Democrat for president.
Fair.
So you can take these polls all you want, but right now the lines are so driven and so rigid, especially for presidential campaigns. It's not going to change a whole lot. Now, could this sway a couple of congressional seats somewhere? Conceivably, particularly in purple districts. But even then, in the purple districts, so much money has been spent that if you can control the narrative, you can probably overcome some of this, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think to answer both your questions in the affirmative would be accurate. I don't think it makes that big of a difference. Mm-hmm. I think Republicans, for most of my adult life, and I've been a Republican my entire life, I think we're the ones that always blink first because we have the most cowards in the party.
That's fair.
I hate to say that.
No, it's accurate.
And that's why Trump has been successful, because he ran as a proud, aggressive, loud-styled Republican. Meanwhile, we've got people like Lindsey Graham. I have no idea what he believes. I don't think he does either.
He believes whatever will get him elected.
And people that I've served with in my life, they will tell you 1, 2, and 3 on the campaign trail and stab you in the back every single chance they get behind closed doors. These aren't real Republicans. They're game players, right? They're kids that need hugs, that need affirmation from the voters because they can't find happiness in their own pitiful little lives. It's who they are. Yeah. But what we need right now are backbones. And we don't have those.
No.
We have Trump, thank God. We have a few more that have some backbones. But most of these cats don't have any idea what a backbone is. Yeah. If they did, $38 trillion in debt would be unacceptable.
Yeah.
If they did, this terrible immigration policy would be unacceptable. If they did, they'd find ways to cut our taxes and cut spending, which would be acceptable. If they did, they would have given the federal government so much power over every part of our lives. But they don't. They're playing games. Let me vent on this for a second. The other day, there was, you hear me out here. You saw, and I hope some of you saw, this so-called scandal in the NBA as far as gambling. And you had some players involved, you had some coaches involved, and the idea was they were trying to figure out ways to make the mafia some money by spreading information about injuries or whatever the case may be, and getting bettors or wagers to do things that will make money. Now I get it. That's a serious crime. And guess what? We already have laws on the books to prosecute those crimes.
Yeah.
And guess what? The Justice Department got an indictment using the laws on the books to prosecute those crimes. So it's done. Why are they wanting to hold hearings on that?
Because they want to be seen as being engaged and involved.
Do you see the problem?
Oh, well, I've always seen the problem.
Here's the thing. There's nothing they can do. The damage is done. The laws are working as configured. The indictments have been rendered. These are senators just wanting to see themselves on TV shaking hands with basketball players. That's all this is. And it's disgusting. Meanwhile, the debt increases. The country is in shambles for the most part. And they want to hold hearings on basketball and gambling.
Look, this goes back to I've said this multiple times. I think that the U.S. government, the Congress, the Senate, they shouldn't go year round. They should go you take Mississippi as a state. It goes 3 months. Y'all had session when you were there.
3 to 4. Most states do that. Texas only meets once a year.
Yeah.
Once every year.
So why can't the federal government
They
do that?
can, but these losers can't figure out ways to make money unless they're sitting in Washington.
That's fair.
You know who these people are. These are the scum of the earth.
And they'd have to come home and face us.
They can't do that because to face somebody, they'd have to answer for their votes and answer for their inaction, right? So they're not going to do that. They're going to hide behind press secretaries and hide behind these staffs they've got. But we shouldn't kid ourselves. We expect too much from the scum.
We do.
These are the scum. These are people that have no redeeming qualities or talents whatsoever, so they run for office, then they hold on to it with all their power. And then they go to an airport and they accost a security guard because they can't get through the line fast enough, right? It's disgusting. And when I say all of them, I don't mean all of them. I mean like 90% of them. You all know my position on this. There are some good people in office, but it's a small sampling size, right? Very small. But look, man, let's hold hearings on basketball gambling. Well, we can't even pass a budget. We can't even pass a basic budget. But you know what? Here's what it is. Well, I'm fired up again. You do this to me. I used to think that TV cameras in the committee rooms were a wonderful thing because it gave us accountability. I'm not so sure anymore.
No, it just gives us grandstanding.
That's all.
Yep.
You get 2 minutes to ask a gotcha question, get your zinger on there so Fox can pick it up or CNN can pick it up, and you don't accomplish a single bloody thing except getting that zinger on TV. Well, congratulations. Your country's, going through hell, and you're talking to basketball players about a gambling problem that's already been solved via the indictment. Any more questions, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, let's get back to the shutdown because, again, one of the biggest things that they're bringing up right now is SNAP benefits potentially being shut down. A federal judge had ruled that they have to go to some of the emergency funding and must fund this. First off, I don't think the judge can do that, Chris. You know the law better than I do. Where's the judge's standing to order the White House or Congress to dip into the emergency funding? Well, and why wouldn't he just order them to freaking reopen the government?
I wish I'd read the case. I saw the headline and I kind of scoffed at it. He's going to find a provision somewhere that deems this to be essential or non-discretionary. But I'm not sure that line exists. And it sounds to me like if the line does exist, it's going to be subject to some pretty significant interpretation. But I need to read the opinion to be 100% sure.
Gotcha.
I did not read it. I thought it was silly.
That's the way it came across to me. But I will save that and ask you again next week, or maybe you'll just lead off with it next week.
Yeah, we could talk about that. Yeah.
The other thing when it comes to this particular issue, Chris, ending the filibuster. Donald Trump is pretty much said if Republicans don't do it. They're a bunch of cowards. I mean, he's pretty much come out and said it. Chris, I know.
Do you think he'll endorse all of those next?
Oh, absolutely, he will. He probably already endorsed half of them.
Okay.
I mean,
serious.
That's my biggest. Look, I like Donald Trump. My biggest complaint is when he endorses the swamp, he can't drain it, and he endorses the swamp every chance he gets. But then he'll go out and he'll go after somebody that stands on principle, like Thomas Massey, and that frustrates the heck out of me because again. They're not just agreeing with you, Donald, because they like you or they actually agree with you. They're agreeing with you merely because it's to their benefit at this moment.
They just need the endorsement. They need the endorsement. Yeah. What they'll do, they'll wait him out. Yeah. They'll wait him out. And in 3 years, nothing will change. That's what they're doing. They're playing the long game.
Well, he's forgotten, too, that after January 6th, it was those same people were critical of Donald Trump who are now kissing his butt again, and he forgot all about that.
Anyway, where were we going with
well, this? I was, before we got off on the tangent, I was going to ask you, what are the pros and cons of ending the filibuster? I think I already know where you stand on the filibuster, but you can remind the listeners there too.
My answer always shocks the more conservative members of society because my answer there would be a bit different than what's considered traditional Republican politics. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you why that is. You ready for this?
Go ahead.
The filibuster, as it presently is configured, is the result of a Senate rule, not a hard and fast constitutional prohibition. You understand that?
Yeah.
So to claim that the filibuster is somehow inherently tied to the very founding of this country is absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
If the founders would have wanted a 60-vote margin in the Senate, they would have placed that right there in black and white in the Constitution. It's a rule the Senate has passed. And what it does, it empowers individual senators to a large extent. This is the way it works. Any one of the senators on any bill can raise his hand and say, I object. And basically, long story short, at that stage, you have to have 60 votes to overcome the objection, to close the filibuster. It used to be you went up and spoke. You've seen Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and you've seen these old sayings where they get up there and speak for 4 to 8 hours. This is essentially the change. You don't have to speak anymore. You can just say, I object.
Yeah.
And then you have to have 60 votes to overcome, close that, and move forward, right? And you say, well, that just makes sense. It slows down the machinery of government. My position used to be that made sense to me until we got to the point where we're operating on auto drive. Mm-hmm. Till we got to the point where the country literally, from an economic perspective, is falling to pieces. Recognizing that the only way to ever stop it is to pass hard and fast legislation to somehow curb the abuses. Legislation you'll never be able to pass unless you have 61 votes.
Yeah.
I don't like the filibuster as configured because it keeps us from being reformers. And reforming is the only way we can save this country. Now, you always hear the other side say, no, our side, well, if we do it, they'll do it.
Yeah.
They're going to do it either way.
Yeah.
You'll find out. You'll find out. They're going to get there either way because they're as sick of us as we are of them. So my position would be when we have this power at this time and we so desperately need reform, we better be courageous enough to enact and do something with reform. Mm-hmm. That's what Trump is arguing. But all the think tanks will say, well, that's just not going to work. Well, let me ask you a question. How's your system worked for the last 70 years? Because you seem to think we're on the right track.
Yeah.
We're adding $1 trillion of debt to the country every 2 months now, and you seem to think the status quo is working. Consider that for a second. They seem to think everything's going to fall apart if we get rid of the filibuster. My position is it's going to fall apart if you don't get rid of the filibuster. Yeah. I'm sick of living in fear. We're literally going at 100 miles per hour toward a cliff, and they're saying, "Don't turn the wheel," because they may abuse it if you turn the wheel. Yeah. Anyway, you see my point.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm right there with you because I see that argument all the time where folks are like, "Well, they'll do it," and
it's being done.
Win elections.
But it's being done.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they don't get. It's already happening by virtue of default. It's happening.
Yeah.
Anyway, you got to put your head in the sand a long way not to see that.
Yeah. I mean, look, I criticize Trump for his endorsements, but I do praise him for calling them out and basically saying, do this or you're a bunch of cowards. I do like that strategy.
Here's the other reason. I'm glad we're on this subject. They hide behind it. Mm-hmm. They hide behind it.
Yeah.
So they can come home now and tell you they're for X, Y, and Z. But if we just need to get that 60 votes to fix it. No, you're playing dirty politics. Because if you really wanted to pass legislation, you could suspend that filibuster and do it with 51 votes.
Yeah.
You could.
Yeah.
You could.
And you got it right now.
And you got it right now. So, but no, they love not being able to do anything because the status quo is enriching them.
Mm-hmm.
You, folks, you got one person fighting for you right now, and it ain't Congress.
Yeah.
It ain't Congress. All right.
Oh goodness. Those are my only real questions on that one, Chris. But I do have a question for you off subject because it was a major story in our state this past week. The Great Monkey Gate here in Mississippi, Chris. I had one of our reporters on the right side this week talking about who was there at the crash site, saw the monkeys that got killed. Is this not one of the craziest stories you've seen in our state in a long time?
I don't know. I mean, it's weird. When I first heard the news break, I thought it was
a joke.
Let me tell you why, though. We live in this age where I don't believe anything I see on social media anymore under any circumstances. Videos are forged. Voices are forged. Writing is forged. Nobody's telling the truth, and I can't figure out what's up and down anymore. Yeah. You just can't. The videos we watch are so real, and they're just manufactured AI. I don't even believe videos I see anymore. Yeah. So this is where I am. So when I saw it pop up, I'm like, whatever, sure, a truckload.
We
of
were
monkeys.
The same way in the newsroom.
A truckload of monkeys crashed. Sure, they did, right? Turns out they did.
Yeah.
Here's where it gets even more weird from my perspective. I'm not really interested in a truckload of monkeys that crashed. They're research monkeys. I hate that it happened to them. I hate they had been infected. What really got my attention was the madness with the conspiracy theories that started popping up. I mean, do y'all really believe that Fauci had something to do with this? Because somebody texted me that.
I've seen that too.
Do you really believe this was some conspiracy with the government somehow, that they're creating super soldier monkeys to attack folks in rural Mississippi? Where does that get you? Look, it was monkeys in a truck, and the truck unfortunately crashed, and the monkeys got out, and I guess some have been shot, some have been captured. I don't know. But for this to be that kind of story involving that type of conspiracy thinking, it goes to show how far down the rabbit hole we've all gone.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's captivated folks. And I get it, especially when you've got, Tulane University not saying anything, saying that they're not their monkeys, but then they know everything about the monkeys. They say they're not diseased, and they show up in hazmat suits. I mean, it's just like, I can see why somebody's conspiracy side starts spinning.
Who knows?
It's funny.
But here's the thing. I was in an airport one time when COVID first started, and the Asians were the ones that were initially really alarmed about COVID. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I think you told me this.
Yeah. You know how everybody else had a mask on? Mm-hmm. These folks had full body suits. I've never seen anything like it in my life. So just because the presence of a hazmat suit was called for doesn't mean the monkeys were necessarily infected or dangerous. I don't know what's happening to society. And the fact that this is a big story alarms me even more than a national debt does. But here we are talking about monkeys, and I'm sure somebody out there is enjoying this. And there's another guy that probably claims to be part of QAnon, and he's probably writing about how Fauci put those monkeys in Tulane.
I'm sure that's happening
to create a new super virus. I don't know what's happening to this country, but here we are.
It's crazy, Chris. You should have seen us in the newsroom when we first, because we're sitting there cracking jokes. We're on deadline day, Chris. We're getting the paper finished. Pretty much the paper's done at that point, and we're making jokes when we first see it because we don't think it's real. And then we see the sheriff's department put out a post. And we're like, I think this is real.
Yeah. So. Again, it's really not that big of a deal in the overall scheme of things. I mean, who cares? Some monkeys got in an accident. I just thought it was funny that the way it was reported. I don't know.
Well, Chris, I mean, what do you think's going to happen there in New York in this mayor's race? I mean, I know that's been one you've been keeping a tight eye on. Do you think the socialist is going to win, or do you think that at the end of the day, they're going to sneak in at the last minute and beat them?
Here's the thing: when you say they swooping in, I think I think in the modern age, particularly when people become viral, TikTok,
Yeah.
things of this nature, and he has this look for TikTok. He looks like a nice, smiling young fella that threatens no one. And if you've seen his TikTok ads, they're cool things, short. He doesn't have to explain anything. He just says, listen, no more rent. Hey, look, free food, right? And people fall for that. Here's the question we should be asking ourselves, and I have not researched this, and this is the biggest question. He's going to win the first night. Is there going to be a runoff in New York? Most states have runoffs. Some states do not. I haven't even researched that, but he's going to win the first night. In the closest poll, he's still up 6 on Cuomo, 6. And they were trying to blow it off like it was nothing. It's still 6 points.
6 points
and
is
as
not
long
nothing.
as Silva, is that the guy's name used to be the Guardian Angels?
I think so.
And he's a good conservative guy, but he's polling at 23, 24 now.
No shot.
But he won't get out of the race.
No.
So as long as he's in the race, yes.
He's playing smaller.
If he gets out, endorses, then Cuomo could jump, right? That's the question. That's the question, whether he will or not.
Yeah, it's a fascinating race to watch, though, for sure.
Here's the thing.
Not as fascinating as monkeys.
It's not nearly as fascinating as monkeys, but it's not surprising. And I'm not even one that thinks it's fascinating to watch. I think it's a degree of sickness in the inner cities that have harmed many of our inner cities.
Yeah.
I think the more radical the politician in this day and age, the one that promises the more free stuff, has an inherent advantage in these cities. And, Jefferson warned us about that. He warned us that there was something about cities that created a sense of corruption. He never fully articulated it. He was concerned about the nature of big cities and what they did to human spirit and human pride. We see that. New York's no different. Whatever happens up there, though, I think we put too much emphasis on it. I think that if New York wants to fail in a major, very public way, then let it fail, but don't bail it out.
Yeah.
Don't bail it out. If New York's going to elect a socialist, or it seems like he's more communist even than socialist, but if he's going that route, let him fail. It's just 4 years. And
it might finally be the death knell for socialism in the country when socialism fails in a recognizable city.
I think it's going to send a powerful message to investment and corporate growth in New York if he does take over, because by the time he pushes those tax increases in, he scares the wealthy out of the city. What will he have left but a failing tax base and no way to pay for the programs he's promised he'll pay for? So it'll be a short term, a short run for him. But maybe we'll all finally get to see just how ugly socialism really is if it happens in our largest city. The question is, and I hate to see it because I like New York, I don't want to see them suffer, but you have to have enough discretion and intelligence not to vote for someone that's going to bring you the same third world conditions that philosophy has brought everywhere it's been attempted. Whether it's Russia, whether it's China, whether it's Venezuela, whether it's Cuba. Wherever we seek collective control of the government, more control over individual matters of our lives, the economy suffers. They don't have bread shortages in Florida. They have bread shortages in Cuba. You don't see folks getting on life rafts trying to float to Cuba to escape America. You see them getting here to escape Cuba. It'll be the same way in New York. Folks will escape there. The good, productive citizens will escape there. And the city will become whatever it's meant to become. That's why I like Chicago so much more anyway.
And it's got its own problems.
And the west side and the south side, parts of the south side. But it's got larger streets, better people, Midwesterners. Yeah,
they're definitely more kind. And you aren't bumping in somebody every step you take like in New York. That's accurate. Yeah. Chris, have you seen this story on Massachusetts couple saying that their foster license was revoked after their Christian beliefs led them to refuse to sign a state contract requiring them to affirm a child's gender?
Yeah, I did. Going back to your brain being so open-minded that it falls out the side of your head. First of all, these individuals, based on the federal Constitution, don't have to sign any way that violates their religious belief system. That's a patently unconstitutional provision. So if it's challenged, they're going to prevail. But just the thought that a bureaucrat considered doing that to someone, and I bet those parents are some of the finest parents in the world. Yeah. But because they won't walk that liberal line, they're now somehow disqualified for being foster parents. When you have a system that's already overwhelmed and overburdened, and people, we need foster parents more than ever before. And you're saying they can't be unless they ascribe to some new political philosophy you just invented a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It's a sickness that exists among liberals, and that's why the story matters. It matters more than a monkey story.
It absolutely does, and the policy, they say that the agency actively recruit, or this is what is being said by another group, saying that they're actively recruiting, screening, and assess foster families for their ability and willingness to affirm the alphabet mafia's, children. Yeah. And
if a child, by definition, legal definition, doesn't have the capacity to enter contracts, doesn't have the capacity to own a weapon, doesn't have the capacity to vote, doesn't have the capacity to drive a car. In some places, probably couldn't get on the subway, right? But we believe, according to this logic, if it's applied, that child should have the right to transition itself.
Yeah.
It's a sickness.
It is.
It's a liberal sickness, and it makes no sense whatsoever. I did see an interesting story the other day about how can I say this without being incredibly offensive? Just regular people in the community, homosexuals, lesbians, that aren't transsexual, how they're now responding to the transsexual movement. And it turns out they got some problems with it. There's a divide now, and they call it the Rainbow Coalition. They're seeing this too, and they think it's a little strange themselves. They're saying, wait a second, kids transitioning at 7, right? Wait a second, 55 genders? Wait a second. And they're starting to sense that they're pushed the envelope so far to the left now, it could be harming them. So there's a break now inside their coalition. That's welcome to see. It means there's common sense left.
Yeah.
There's common sense left out there somewhere. We'll have to just see how far it goes. But that's just, what's happening there is just wrong.
I mean, it should be concerning to everyone, because even though that's a northern city, don't put it past liberals to try to push for this to be nationwide, because they love for things like this to be adopted nationwide. They do not believe in us being, the states' rights. They left has never believed in states' rights. They will fight against it time and time again, because they want a one-size-fits-all approach to government. That's what we've seen time and time again, because they worship it.
Unfortunately, we do too. It depends on the issue.
That's fair.
I mean, we need to find the Constitution speaks very clearly to that. And both parties need to recognize that the only chance we've got to mutually exist at this stage under the same form of government is to decentralize Washington and give the powers back to the states. And even though Massachusetts is wrong for that, if that's the policy that people choose, we would have to at least, don't like it, but at least understand under our system that's allowable. But likewise, if Mississippi takes the exact opposite approach on a dozen different issues, they would also have to understand that's the system, that we have to allow it to work its magic. Here's the thing. I know we're getting close to the end of the show, and we talk about this a lot on this show, because I see only one answer, just one, of how to solve all the anger, the consternation, and the confusion, right?
Yeah.
They, being the Democrats, want control over Washington. Washington is a small little city, about the size of one of our counties. It's a small little city. They want control over it so they can control us. We want control over it so we can control them. That's why so much money and effort and time and anger is spent trying to control that city. Here's the problem. Remember back in the day, we don't do this anymore, but teapots. You ever heard a teapot whistle? What causes a teapot to whistle?
When it gets hot enough and the steam.
The steam. Steam. That's what's being created is heat and steam, right? And unless you have a place for that to go, the teapot would eventually just pop or explode. It would have to, right? But it pops out the whistle and there's balance. That's what federalism gives us if we do it right. California can experiment. So can Florida. So can Massachusetts. So can Mississippi. And it keeps us in our own unique lanes.
Yeah.
And our own unique governments at that stage can then pass legislation that shares a common sense approach based on the people that live in that state as to how they wish to be governed. That's what America's all about. But every time somebody gets control of the big city up there, they try to use it to control everybody else, and it empowers it exclusively. and the states are told to take a back seat. I am telling you right now, this country cannot survive unless we return those powers back to the states.
Amen.
There's too much anger, there's too much tension, there's too much political violence already. The answer is to do that and leave each other alone and let folks self-govern. You do that, we'll survive. You don't, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse because that steam has nowhere to go. It's dangerous.
Well said. I mean, if you look at some of the things going on in Europe, because we know that's precursor. I mean, you see, like you alluded to it earlier when we were talking about it. I mean, you see example after example of where rights are being stolen away from those people. If we're not careful, that's going to happen here in this country. If we're not diligent and fighting for our rights given to us by our Creator, we're going to wake up one day and be asking, well, why am I not allowed to say that anymore? Why is that illegal? And that's the inherent danger that we continue to face. And like I said, if you think that's crazy to say, look at some of the crap that's happening in Europe. Look at this Massachusetts story and see how crazy it's getting. And you have to remain diligent. Yeah. And you have to keep an eye on both parties. As you said, you can't just trust, Republican it doesn't.
Hold on, how much time do we have real quick? We're getting close. Huh? Somebody's got to cut this thing up at some point, don't we? Anyway, it's been a heck of a show. I do encourage the folks to go back. The last 30 minutes was a bit of a hodgepodge, but the first 30 minutes, I think, deals with a very material issue that affects this country. And I need to go back and look at that because if we don't address the immigration policies and the issues that are affecting all of us, it's just going to get worse. And I'll leave you with this warning that you got to get involved. You just have to. President Trump has done a good job fighting. He's got 3 more years. And after that, then what? You better find congressmen that agree with you. You better find city councilmen that agree with you. You better find state senators and state representatives that agree with you. You better make darn sure you fight for them because there's got to be barriers placed up to protect what's left of our individual liberties. Yep. And only good, strong men and women with backbone can do that. And that's one thing this country is lacking sorely right now are people with strong backbones to stand in the way and say, it's not happening on our watch. With that said, I've had a good time. Thanks for being here. This has been Chris McDaniel's America here on the Midnight Rod Network. That's your home of the anti-establishment movement in this country. We'll see you next time.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0.
Wow, it's so soft and smooth.
It's cool to the touch. How did you do that?
Well, we took My Pillow's patented fill and combined it with this new technology that we didn't have back then when I invented My Pillow to bring you the best pillow in history, My Pillow 2.0. Just like all of you, I never imagined that My Pillow could get any better. That's why I haven't changed it in nearly 20 years. Then I heard about a revolutionary new technology, and I knew I had to bring it to you all. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
The My Pillow 2.0 is cooler and softer than the last My Pillow. It is so comfortable to sleep on at night. I look forward to going to bed, and I wake up well rested in the morning.
Sleep is all about temperature and height. My Pillow 2.0's patented adjustable fill is going to give you the exact individual support you need from your head to your bed. And now here's where it gets even better. We've all experienced those temperature-related sleep interruptions where you get too hot, you toss and turn, you flip your pillow over to the cool side. Well, all that's gone with my brand new My Pillow 2.0 cooling fabric that's made with temperature-regulating thread.
The best sleep just got even better. Whether you have a MyPillow or not, you need to get the brand new MyPillow 2.0. Call or go to MyPillow.com now. Use your promo code, and for a limited time when you buy one, you'll get a second one absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
Visit MyPillow.com.